Good morning, ma'am and classmate. My name is Felixberto G. Albingco Jr. and I'm BSBA 4, major in marketing management. And my report is all about service marketing. And this report is discontinuation of report of Edgar Montalla. So, itong report ko na po na service marketing is karugtong po ito ng report ni Edgar. Kasi po meron po kaming topic na pinaghatian. So, ang napunta po sa akin is aligning demand and capacity. So, pag sinabi po nating aligning, ito yung pagpapantay ng demand at capacity. So, due to the relative inflexibility of service capacity coupled with the variability of service demand, aligning the two remains a challenge. Relatively recent writing incorporating the regional thinking suggests four options are available to service organizations in determining a relationship between demand and capacity. So dito tinutukoy ng ugnayan sa pagitan ng demand at capacity. So magsisimula na po ako may kinuha po ako dito ng mga summary sa libro. So ito po yung mga mahalagang topic na nakuha ko doon. Una is ang provide. Provide where sufficient capacity is available at all times to meet peak demand. This may mean periods of excess capacity but is referred to a situation where business is lost due to insufficient capacity. So pag sinabi po nating provide, ito po yung sabing nagbigay, or something, ano pa ang thoughts nyo about dito. So kung saan sapat na kapasidad ay magamit lang sa lahat ng oras upang matugunan ang pinakamataas na pangangailangan. Next is ang match or sinasabi nating tugma, where attempts are made to anticipate demand patterns so that capacity levels can be changed to accommodate. It will involve careful scheduling of work as well as considering subcontracting or outsourcing. So kung saan ito ginagawa ang mga pagtatangka upang asahan ang pattern ng demand, ang kapasidad or capacity ng iyon. Next is influence or sinasabi nating influensya, where demand patterns are changed if possible to obtain effective utilization of capacity. Responsibility for changing demand will be with marketing deploying elements of the marketing mix as appropriate. Kung saan binabago ang mga pattern ng demand kung maaari upang makakuha ng mga bisa. Control where capacity remains fixed in service situations that are unique and high cost resources are needed to provide that level of service expected. Consequently, variation in demand needs to be kept a minimum. Dito is manatiling na sa ayos ang sitwasyon ng serbisyo at unique. Kumbaga unique. Keep minimum. Then, from discussion so far, it should be clear that service organization face a challenge in terms of managing demand and capacity. Yield management is a technique designed to address the challenge. It is defined the provision of the right service to the right customer at the right time for the right price. So, a provision of the right service, yung tamang serbisyo, para sa tamang customer, para sa tamang presyo, sa tamang oras at sa tamang presyo. Where can yield management be applied? Yield management is not yet suitable for all service organization. Application has been most successful in service that have the following characteristics. Una is relative fixed capacity. Once a hotel has rented out its own room further, demand cannot be met without substantial capital investment. Perishable inventory. A major constraint for service is time, or more specifically time during which a unit of capacity is available. If a hotel room unit is not sold for a particular date, the revenue that would have been gained is lost. Segmented markets, where the market for a service can be segmented according to certain criteria. Price sensitivity. Fluctuating demand, where the adoption of various pricing approaches enables the reduction of peaks in variable demand. Success is the regard result is more effective utilization of capacity. So itong report ko na to is ito na yung summary ng nasa libro. So ito yung mga nakuha ko, is ito yung mga mahalagang topic doon. Low variable to fixed cost ratio. And nandiyan na rin, nakalagay na rin ang kanilang mga ibig sabihin. In service pricing, some contribution must be made toward fixed cost. The low level of variable cost, cleaning a hotel room, coupled with discretion in pricing, means that the revenue expected from selling it is invariably greater than if was not sold. That is why yield management is usually regarded as a profit enhancing strategy. So ang summary ng libro na nakuha ko is, service providers face a particular problem when it comes to demand management. So mga service providers daw is nagkakaroon sila ng particular na problema pagdating sa demand ng management and capacity utilization. Unlike manufacturing, service organization cannot stockpile their output in a warehouse and wait for a demand to materialize. Demand for service can fluctuate in such an unpredictable way that capacity is either unable to cope or grossly underutilized. Achieving a match between demand and capacity is therefore a difficult goal to achieve. Service will vary in terms of how easily capacity can be adjusted. A number of options are available for making capacity more flexible, to which are gathering interest, namely using customer as productive resources and outsourcing. Demand represent more of a challenge. Among options here, variable pricing remains attractive. A technique attracting attention is the field of revenue management. By applying a number of key elements, you will have gathered a basic understanding of how this technique works. No matter how successful yield management is, there still remains the residual matter of customer having to wait and queue. This is simple a feature of service of which there appears to be available solution. However, attending to the behavioral principle governing queuing and waiting should focus your mind on how to make this phenomenon as comfortable as fair as possible for customers. So, yan po yung service marketing na pinaghatian po namin ng report ni Edgar. So, dadako po tayo sa aking topic. Ito po ang aking topic is service communication. Service communication. So, introduction. Today's environment is firstly competitive. So, ngayon daw na environment is firstly competitive. Maraming kalaban, or else kailangan pagandahan ng mga ads or pagandahan ng mga post sa Facebook kasi alam natin na kailangan na nating makipagsabayan sa online ngayon. It is therefore not enough to develop a service for which there is known demand. It is not enough to say that a good service will sell itself. The service must be communicated to the target market in order to generate and develop a loyal customer base. While communication can be planned there before the service is ready for consumption, this should certainly not be implemented. With the ever-increasing variety of media channels and the proliferation of brands, marketing communication must be planned and implemented in an integrated fashion. So ngayon is napakahalaga ng service communication kasi pag ikaw is meron kang business or meron kang product, kailangan is, 'di ba, nakikita or else naririnig. Kasi nandito na tayo ngayon sa media world or nandito na tayo sa computer world. So, kailangan natin makipagsabayan. Kung ikaw ay may business or meron kang product, kailangan natin ibalandra yung product mo or yung service mo dyan sa or any social media platform like, di ba, marami naman yan. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, so whatsoever. Kung ano pang meron mga apps dyan na pwede tayo advertise. So, kailangan natin ang service communication ngayon. In previous times, there were more limited opportunities for ways in which a company could communicate with these audiences. There were also generally fewer brands in market sector, meaning that it was relatively easier for the brand to be seen and heard. So, like what I said kanina na kailangan is nasa online world na tayo ngayon. So, kailangan natin makipagsabayan. Either ipopost ba natin siya sa Facebook or else magbabayad tayo para sa ads para lagi nakikita yung product natin or else yung business natin. However, today's multi-brand markets and diverse and numerous ways of talking to consumers means that it becomes increasingly important that every piece of communication works optimally. Next slide is the role of communications. Communication can add value to the service in the eyes of the consumer. So, ang pakikipag-communicate daw ay nakakadagdag value sa serbisyo para sa mata ng mga consumer o ng mga yung suki mo or yung mga mamimili. This is one of key benefits in many cases that will enable the provider to charge a premium over that of competitors. Advertising is one of the most visible ways through which an organization communicates with its customer. So, ayun na nga, sa tulad ng sinabi ko, advertising. So, pag-advertise ng iyong mga produkto, like, di ba? For example, yung sa mga billboards, advertising yan. Flyers, advertising yan. Sa social media platform, advertising yan. Kasi, like what I said kanina, sabi ko lang kanina, nasa computer world na tayo. So, may nabasa nga ako na isang sikat na businessman. Sinabi niya is, if your business is not in online, you're not in the business. So, simple lang naman sinabi niya, kung ang negosyo mo daw ay wala sa online or sabi natin na sa computer world, is para ka rin daw hindi nagninegosyo. Kasi, di ba, tulad ngayon, kahit mga bata or matanda, lagi nakatutok sa cellphone or else, di ba, advertising na rin yan. Like, sa Facebook, nakikita nila lagi doon. Pag mag-scroll up, scroll down sila doon. So, para sa mga nagninegosyo ngayon, madali na lang ang pag-advertise ng kanilang mga produkto. Services communication. The key difference between product and service should be taken into account in considering service communication as follows. Simultaneous production and consumption. The layout, shop, fascia, and the appearance, the matter of the stuff are critical communication variables. So, to is communicating the role that the consumer is expected to play in production of in the service they want to consume. So, nandito yung meron ditong tatlo na service to consume. Una is intangibility. Intangibility, service provider should attempt to reduce the risk to the consumers of buying an intangible product by providing tangible clues about the service offering. These clues come from all aspects of corporate communication. Intangibility, ito yung nakikita or nahahawakan. Then, heterogeneity. This to leads the greater perceived as again communicate can help to reduce this factor. May appropriate to communicate a service guarantee or promise or to demonstrate how well trained your staff are. Perishability. Many promotional tools, advertising, sales promotion, and direct marketing have role to play in shipping demand. This is one of the most challenging aspects of service management and arise from the fact that service cannot be inventored. Key communication variables, the role of personal selling. So, the role of personal selling is ito yung paano ka magbenta. Personal selling ng iyong paano mo ibenta ang iyong produkto. Service delivery often involves human encounter, whether face-to-face or more remotely via the telephone. So, kung ikaw nagbebenta ka, pwede rin naman daw face-to-face or human encounter or more. Di ba ngayon, sa cellphone na lang, nag-order na lang, tumatawag na lang sa'yo. The way in which the encounter develops can determine whether the customer walks away feeling pleased, satisfied, annoyed, or victimized. Although the customer expectation help determine levels of satisfaction, the encounter itself will invariably play a significant part in determining satisfaction. The person who delivered the service often actually part of the service itself. He or she is now merely facilitating the exchange of product that is already fully developed and waiting to pick from a shelf Waiting staff in restaurant deliver not just food but customer satisfaction. Next is ang call center. Service companies are increasingly conducting some of their personal selling remotely via telephone. With a growing number outsourcing this to call centers, in the early days such centers were generally tasked with handling customer helplines in the area of service recovery. In other words, they were more involved with customer retention than recruitment. So, call centers, naglipa na mga call centers ngayon dito sa atin sa Pilipinas. So, marami kasing call center ngayon is nasa Maynila. So, ako din, may experience din ako na pumasok ako sa call center. Nagtrabaho ako ng call center. So, napunta naman ako sa ang binibenta naman namin yung nagdoon ako sa call center is insurance ng mga manager. Yun, pinipili namin yung mga manager or yung mga, kasi meron kayong listahan niya ng mga tao na tatawagan nyo. So, ganyan lang talaga. Then, sabi nila na mahirap mag-call center. No, hindi mahirap mag-call center. Mas mahirap pa mag-apply kaysa mag-call center. Kasi, pag call center ka na, lahat ng babasahin, nandoon na. May spell sila doon. So, nandoon lahat ang kailangan mong sabihin, kung paano ka sumagot. Nandoon na lahat sa iyong harapan. Ibibigay habang nagtitraining ka. So, sabi nila na mahirap pag-call center. No, mas mahirap mag-apply kaysa mag-call center. Mas mahirap pang mag-apply kaysa magtrabaho ka na as call center. Kasi may script naman dun eh. Babasahin mo na lang at the same time, kung anong sasabihin ng customer, lahat doon nakalagay kung anong mga isasagot mo sa kanya. So, malaking tulong din itong call center kasi, 'di ba, pag yung may problema sa produkto or else sa mga service is doon tatawagan. Yun nga lang is meron talaga mga tao na mainit ang ulo, minsan nababalingan ng mga call center, kawawa din minsan yung call center talaga. Kaya kailangan talaga ng matinding pasensya pag nandito tayo sa call center. Corporate identity. In many cases, consumer purchase decisions are based on the organization that a service is bought from rather than a specific brand. For example, British Airways. So, ang in-example dito is ang British Airways ng corporate identity. So, ito is pagkakakilanlan ng korporasyon. British Airways is ito yung airlines ng Great Britain. May have attempted to segment their service offering into business class, first class, holidays. They have dedicated brand terms for each of these segments, but we expect the most people still see themselves as buying from British Airways. For this reason, the development of a corporate identity becomes important. It is also beneficial to develop an image that gives organization a focus since there are many variables working against the projection of a cohesive image. So, mahalaga talaga ang corporate identity kasi kunwari, kung nakita lang nila na, British Airways, napakagandang sumakay dyan. Lalong-lalo na sa kanilang business class or first class. Now, sulit na sulit. VIP na VIP ang dating mo. So, as customer, so may satisfaction na para sa mga customer. At the same time, madali lang nila ito, British Airways. Kumbaga, alam na nila, matik na yung airlines na yan is good service, magandang serbisyo na pinapakita. At the same time, isa-satisfied ka talaga. Branding service. How our communication develop? In many cases, the initial stage of the process is to develop a brand image. Brands have continued to increase in importance in service marketing through the 1990s and early part of the 21st century. This trend is expected to continue since there is an increasing proliferation of brands with service sectors. Service markets are becoming more competitive. It has been shown to be up to 5 times cheaper to retain current customers than attract the new one. Service life cycles are becoming shorter. New service development thus assumes or greater importance. The risk of product launch are reduced in the context of umbrella branding. The service itself may offer no unique and sustainable tangible benefit. This can be added by development of brand imagery. Advertising the service. So, the advertising of service often more complicated than for products. In many cases, this is due to the intangible nature of the offering. The advertising has to evoke the likely experience of the user, which in turn introduce a second complication. The service can be often be unique to each buyer, as in case for most professional services. The service will be a bundle of attributes that will not be offered to buyer in every purchase occasion. Setting advertising objective. One approach to the setting advertising objective strategy is to consider the four variables that are used to describe the difference between service and products. In the past, writers have suggested which the variables they believe to be the most important. Setting advertising strategy. The next step is to arrive at an advertising strategy. This determines how the objective will be communicated. Setting the objective with it set the strategy. So, kailangan kung mag-advertise ka rin, kailangan mag-set ka ng advertising strategy. Di paro bara-bara lang. Kailangan is, di ba, sa inyong mga heads, kaya nga nagkakaroon ng meeting para pag-usapan kung ano ang tama or ano ang ilalabas nyo na advertising. Campaign evaluation. The development of advertising is not a one-off job. After the campaign has run, some attempt must be made to assess its effectiveness. Part of this process will be an examination of the continuing relevance of the original objective and strategy. Advertising professional services. The 1980s witnessed a relaxation in the control and regulation of professional service advertising. It began 1985 with test case brought by opticians. Research in the US had shown the restriction of advertising work against the interests of consumers, insufficient information on which to base their brand choice. The case was decided in the opticians' favor. It led to the Office of Fair Trading report in 1986, which lifted many of the remaining restrictions on other professional services. In addition to the methods of the remaining restriction on other professional services, it is known as professional promotional survey. The organization commissioned research into something that it believes will interest their customer. So, for example, an advertising agency might find that its clients will be interested in changing consumer behavior. The agency will then promote the survey like a new product with headline, PR in the trade press, and more detailed coverage in individual presentations. These presentations are then used as soft-selling detail. The basic idea is to do something in the current and or potential clients will value. It need not be searched, it may just focus on your field of expertise. A law firm could arrange a seminar with prominent legal brains on employment law. For example, historically, there has been some feeling that successful professional organization does not need to advertise. To do so reflect adversely so their standing in the industry. This belief may that prevalent today has been in the past. However, the importance of interpersonal contract and respect means that form of promotion that brings potential client face-to-face with service providers should be encouraged. So, napakahaba ng aking binasa. Pero nandyan na po siya ang meaning niya. The Internet. Parang last topic na po ito, the Internet. The Internet was developed in 1960s by CERN in Switzerland as communication network that would survive a nuclear attack during the 1970s university. So, ito, pinapakita dito kung paano nagsimula ang Internet at kung paano siya ginamit. So, ang Internet was developed, ang Internet daw ay na-develop ng 1960 by CRN in Switzerland. Para sa communication network, para sa mga nakasurvive ng mga nuclear during the 1970s, universities around the world adopted the technology for communicating with one another. It was not until the 1980s that the business community began to recognize the potential of the Internet, and there has since been explosive growth in both the number of organizations with their own website and the number of consumers accessing the Internet. The number of Internet users has been estimated as high as 1 billion. Grabe na pala nung gumagamit ng Internet ngayon, no? Umabot na ng 1 billion. Unlike most other channels the marketing uses to communicate, the Internet presents an opportunity to conduct a two-way dialogue in real time, 24 hours a day. Initially, most people visited websites for information, entertainment, and corporate sites were designed to deliver brand, preposition, and product services. Details increasingly, however, customers have been willing to buy service over the Internet. This is known as electronic commerce. They are also using the medium for commenting on an organization performance. So, the World Wide Web or yung WWW na nakita nyo sa inyong computer presents enormous potential in assisting the deployment of a relationship with marketing strategy. It enables customer organization to communicate in one-to-one basis. It can build brand relationship, act as a channel to market, and provide the customer service function. In doing so, it's bringing about profound changes in consumer and business-to-business buying behavior. Service companies such as banks, hotel, airline companies have already re-engineered their business and incorporate web technology into their process. So maraming salamat po sa lahat ng nakinig ng aking report. Sinamarize ko na lang po yung libro, napakadali lang po niyang intindihin. Sana po ay may natutunan po kayo sa aking report ngayon. Maraming salamat and God bless everyone. Stay safe po tayong lahat dahil alam natin may virus pa ngayon. Salamat po and magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Thank you.